Hi, and welcome to the very first Action Figure Insider Roundtable. As you can see, I've got a round table, and I've got Four Horsemen with me as well. We're here at the Mattel booth at Toy Fair 2010, and we're going to talk to the Four Horsemen. It's rare to kind of get all four of these guys together to have a conversation, so we're very fortunate, and thank you guys very much. So you've shown a lot of new stuff today, both for the DC property and the Masters of the Universe. Can you talk about how you sort of break up the workload between the two properties, like just on a day-to-day or a week-to-week schedule?
First, it starts with a 10-gallon barrel of oil and a small kiddie swimming pool and rubber thongs. No, I mean, it's pretty much just like if there's a certain character that somebody's really into doing, like if Eric or Chris, either one, has a character that they're a huge fan of that they want to do, then, you know, they thumb wrestle over it and decide which one gets to do it, and they go ahead and do it. And then when the fabrication comes up, whatever needs to be done next, Jim or I jump on. You know, I mean, it's fairly simple. There's no crazy science about it. We don't fight over it. It's just however it works out, and it seems to flow pretty well that way.
It's actually the Mattel schedule and what needs to be done at certain dates and what order things get done.
So I've heard Scott from Mattel talk about how a lot of times you guys sculpt almost too much, like extra accessories and parts that don't end up getting into the final tooling, usually for pricing. What happens with that? I know a couple of times we've seen some come back, like with the I think it was Mantis's gun that was going to be. But where do those things go? The Island of Misfit Toys, or?
Usually ends up in like a bucket of spare parts. And that's pretty much it. I mean, some of the stuff will end up on shelves if we don't have stuff to display, but most of it goes right into the bucket. So.
Yeah, actually, one of the best examples of how we made that work out was on Calabac. When we initially did him, he had the gun on the hip and he had a second mace. And Bill Beneke over at Mattel wanted to see those pieces made as much as we did, but they didn't cost in at the time. And so that's how we worked out the whole situation where the green parademon had the gun that was actually Calabac's mace that turned into a gun, and the red parademon's gun actually was originally Calabac's, and we altered it so he could hold it and it could also fit on the belt. So we usually try not to let anything go to waste. It's just a matter of repurposing it from time to time.
Speaking of repurposing, even though we don't normally work on the JLU stuff, there's a Superman over there that has a little bottle city of Candor. We actually originally made that as a prototype for some of the DCU classic stuff. It didn't get used because of costing, whatever, but along the way somewhere they found a way to fit it into the costing of the JLU stuff. So even though we don't normally work on JLU stuff, we've gotten to have our hand in a little bit of that as well.
Nice. Now you guys do a lot of almost Easter eggs in the Masters of the Universe line. One that I just learned about that I don't think anyone has discovered is Adora's weapon is Tila's gun from the movie, from the 1987 movie. And like Man-at-Arms, a lot of the extra things he came with were from like the Gray Skull weapon rack. Who is it that's got the sort of in-depth knowledge of Masters of the Universe that's digging all that stuff out?
Well, and actually CB came up with the Adora gun, so you got to take credit for that.
That was just because I wasn't imaginative enough to come up with anything better.
But, one of the things that's cool about this line is it's pulling from all the history of Masters of the Universe and She-Ra and New Adventures. And so that's a lot of the fun that we've been able to have with it, is that we can include these little type of Easter eggs, but they're also things that we're not just pulling out of thin air. They're things that have some sort of a historical value to them amongst the different versions of the line. So it's something that's a lot of fun for us as well as hopefully for all the fans too.
And if you had to pick one, would you be, for each of you, would you be a DC guy or would you be a Masters guy? if you could only work on one of the two lines going forward?
Choice. That's rough. I mean, I grew up reading comic books, but then, you know, the 80s, the Masters hit, and I was a fan of that stuff too. I guess I'd have to be a DC guy. As much as I hate to admit it, I mean, I love the Masters stuff, but from all my history, it'd have to be DC. Sorry, Masters fans.
Yeah, for me too, a tough choice, and which one that we luckily don't have to make, but definitely Masters of the Universe for me. It was a very influential toy line on me growing up, and very influential, you know, to my career later on in life. So definitely Masters for me.
I can't make a choice, so I'm going to say Ghostbusters.
Excellent point.
What was the question? No, DC would be, yeah, I'm definitely a DC guy. I think it's just more the characters and everything I kind of like. I don't know, the Masters thing was a little bit past my time, so it was definitely a DC guy.
So one thing that you guys are doing in all this is sort of reinterpreting other people's toys from the past. You're doing it with bringing the superpowers into the DCUC line, and then with all the classic Master stuff. Can you talk about how you approach that, like, you know, sort of looking at that and turning it into today's, you know, sort of modern sculpting?
I mean, in some respects, it doesn't take a lot of thought. Like, it's a very natural process for us, because growing up playing with those figures and collecting them, it's just an extension of what we liked about them the first time around, and combining that with the knowledge that we have and the experience that we have. And the way we look at a lot of these, it's, especially with Masters, it's looking at the packages and the paintings and the cartoons and all that, it's kind of what those toys represented when we were kids, like how far they could have actually gone, you know, without going too far, so that they're not the same thing anymore.
And finally, on top of all the Mattel stuff you're doing, you guys have your own properties and lines that you're working on. Can you tell us what's new coming up for the Fantastic stuff, and how you fit all that into your work schedule also?
Well, we're going to be making an announcement on some new stuff coming up very soon. Can't really say anything about it just yet. There's some final issues we still have to iron out, but the Fantastic exclusive stuff went on a little bit of a hiatus, partially because of costing, partially because of time constraints, and we're still moving forward with it. Can't really say much more about it other than we've got an announcement coming up, another month maybe? What is this? Is February? Yeah. March? Probably April. Okay. Probably April. Sorry.
That's all right. Well, this really is a rare treat to have all the Four Horsemen together, and I can't thank you guys enough. All of the readers and myself included just love what you guys are doing, just knocking out of the park, and I appreciate you guys coming down here today. Thanks a lot.